Okay, in this video, we're going to talk about some useful string functions, right? Okay, so working with strings. Okay, so as we know, we can declare string variables, right? S1, and I can assign them, hello. And the reason why it's a capital S is because it's not a native type like integer, like int or float or double or char. String is built on top of char. So I could print this string out just by saying system.out.println, and I could print S1 there. And if I do this and run the code, I'm going to print hello, right? Print hello. Okay, so we're good with basics. Something else I can do, I could say S1 equals S1 plus goodbye, right? And this is going to concatenate. It looks like I'm just adding strings, right? It's going to concatenate goodbye onto S1, right? So if I run this now S1 is hello, goodbye, right? I could have accomplished the same thing, right, if I took string S1 and I had string S2 is goodbye, right? Goodbye. And then I could have said string 1, S1 equals S1 plus, quote, comma, plus S2, right? So now it's going to add S1 and S2 with a comma space in front of it. And if I ran this code, I get hello, goodbye. So we can add strings together just like that, right? Let's see some other useful things. Sometimes it's useful to be able to print or display things or use things in uppercase. So let's say I wanted to force S1 to be all uppercase. I could, instead of printing S1, I could do S1 dot, right, to uppercase, which is a method for a string, and it's going to take this string and it's going to make it uppercase before it prints it out. So if I run this, I get all uppercase. Just similarly, I could do, and you would guess this, to lowercase, paren, and if I run this, I'm going to get it all in lowercase, so it stripped that capital H out, and it ran it in lowercase, right? And I could do this anywhere. I don't need to do this inside the print line. I could declare another string, right? String S2, right? And I could say S2 equals S1 dot to uppercase, and then I could print out S2 here, S2, and so what's this line going to do? It's going to take string 1 and it's going to convert it to uppercase, and then it's going to store it in S2. Now I'm printing out S2, so if I run this, it's going to be uppercase. And I could do the same thing there with to lowercase, right? So useful. Let's say I had a string that had a bunch of spaces here like this, right? Okay, and I ran this code, right? I get all those spaces in there, and there's spaces after it, but you don't see them, right? And let's say I didn't want to have all those spaces. We could use another method called trim, right? So I could say S2 is now S1 trimmed, and trim is going to take the spaces off of the beginning and end of that string, and now I'm back to this, right? Okay, so I've trimmed that string. And let's see what else I could use. There's some other string methods that you can use. You may or may not understand what these do yet, but you could use them. So we could use the char at function. So let's say I wanted to find a certain character. So let's get rid of S2. Let's use S1, and I'm going to change this string back to something useful, right? Like this is a test, right? Okay. And let's say I wanted to get just the S out of there, that first S. So the first thing I need to remember with strings is each character in the string is numbered. So the T, the H, the I, the S, they're all numbered. The tricky part is the numbering starts with 0. So the 0th character in string 1 in S1 is this T. The first character in the string is the H. The second character is the I, right? Because it starts with 0. So the 0th is the T. So if I declare a character, C, right? Char C, and I say C equals S1 dot char at, and I say 0, this is going to take the 0th character in string 1, which is the T, and put it into C. So if I print out C here, I'm actually going to get that first T right there. So if I run this, right, I get the first T. If I do char at 4, let's think what's going to happen. It's going to take the 4th character, but again, starting with 0. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 is a space. Oh, let's do 5, right? So we can actually see something print. So 5, 0 is the T, H is the 1, I is the 2, S is the 3, the space is a 4, and the 5th character is the I. So if I run this code, right, I get an I out of there. So char at is a very useful thing to understand. Another method that the string class gives us is the length of a string. So let's say we have an int length, and I could get rid of this now, and we're not printing C anymore. And I want to determine how long this string is, how many characters it is. Well, let's get to a basic string first, A, B, C, D, E. So this string is 5 characters. It's numbered 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, but there's 5 characters in there. The way we calculate the length of the string is we say the string name, S1, dot length, right? And now I can print length here. Or I don't want to name it length because then you may get confused. Let's name our variable len, and we're going to use the method length, and I'm going to print that. So len is going to get replaced with the length of S1. So let's run this code, right? And the length is 5 because there's 5 characters in there. If there's 2 words, this, test, right? That's going to be 4 for this, 4 for test, and that space counts. So that's 9 characters. So if I run this, right, I'm going to get 9 characters for the length. So length is another useful one. There are others that are useful. Another one that's useful is index of, right? So what I could do is where I could declare a variable called where, which is integer, and I could say where equals, right, S1. And now I'm going to use another method called index of, and in here I am going to pass it, for index of, I'm going to pass it what I'm looking for in that string. So I might be looking for, let's look for where that I is, that I, right? So I'm going to put an I in there, right? And what this is going to do, index of, it's going to start on the left, and it's going to look through this string to find whatever I put in quotes there. So it's going to find that I, and it's going to return the location of that I. But again, remember, this is using a string. Strings start numbering with 0. So the T is 0, the H is 1, and the I is 2. So if I print out where here, right, and run this, I get 2 because it found an I in the second position, 0, 1, 2 of that string, right? So index of is a very useful one to know. There's some other ones that we're going to get into, but they're more useful once we learn conditional statements. A conditional statement like an if statement, and that's how we would compare strings and things like that. But for now, the ones we went through are quite useful. They're going to get you pretty far with strings. Probably at the beginning, to upper and to lower are going to be useful. The ability to concatenate strings with just by the plus sign is useful. And then some of the other ones I showed you, the index of, the char at, the length are going to be useful. Also, trim is something that's good to use because if a user enters in with spaces added on, then your length might not work out. So trim is another useful one.